Hi everyone, it's Swank Ivy with another Letters to an Asexual. This is number 114, and I'm actually not going to give you a letter today, but I am going to talk about something that is of interest to our community, I think, and it's going to tie in a little bit with asexuality and aromanticism, as well as just general discussions of misogyny and some norms in relationships that don't necessarily serve most of us very well. Let's start with my idea for this video, which came when I was getting dressed today and I put on this shirt. If you do not know what this is from the cartoon Owl House, and it pictures two major characters named Luce and Amity. They went to their version of prom together, which is called Grom, where they're from. And anyway, I really like their relationship now, but when people first started shipping them in the cartoon, I wasn't really on board at first because Amity was a bully, and she was bullying the main character, doing some pretty awful things to her, and of course you later find out a lot of stuff about why she deals with stuff that she's embroiled in with bullying, what's going on with all of that, and you do get some repentance and you do get, a satisfactory conclusion from which a relationship can grow. But I was very uncomfortable at the beginning with the idea of shipping someone with their bully, because as probably many of you have also heard, it's very common for people to suggest that if someone picks on someone else, it's because they like them. And we have been asked as a society to accept this as true and to translate harassment into romantic interest and to ultimately appreciate it, treat it as if it's loving. And obviously, as you might imagine, I have an issue with that. So let me back up a little bit. When I was in 4th grade, I had a little boy in my class that would come up and steal my snack from me every day. Sometimes he would just steal some of it, sometimes he would steal all of it. He would just walk up and take it off of my desk and walk away. And he would sometimes chase me on the playground. There was a whole thing where he would come up behind me and he would put both his hands on my shoulders and jump so that I would be forced into the ground, and then he'd run away. And I told my mommy, and my mommy said that this behavior was normal for little boys to do, and that it means he likes me, and that he does this to me because I don't stand up for myself, and that I was being a tattletale by saying that a boy was picking on me. And this was very weird as an aside for my mother, because sometimes if I said that something bad was happening to me at school, she would become Mama Bear and she would roar, and she would try to take care of it, or she would appropriately or inappropriately try to deal with the situation. But the other half of the time there was a lot of blaming. There was a lot of, well, this happens because it's your fault. You must have done something to make this behavior happen to you, or if it's happening to you, it's because you're not dealing with it appropriately yourself and you need to learn. So what I was being told with a very confusing message is that these were expressions of interest, that this boy must want to be my friend, or he must like me in, I guess, a cutesy wanna be my Valentine 4th grader way. And I definitely didn't feel like that was what was going on. I didn't feel like the boy liked me. I didn't feel like he was expressing any kind of tenderness or interest in me. I just thought, I'm the smallest kid in the class. I was often the smallest kid in the class, and he's picking on me because it's easy. It's easy to steal my snacks. So I ended up telling my teacher about it in a very indirect way. I wrote it in a journal entry, a prompted journal entry, which I guess every day that we did our journal work, there would be a prompt, and one day the prompt was, I worry about ... And I said, I worry about this boy in my class named Daryl. He does this, he does that. And I even have little pictures of him pushing me down on the playground and stuff. And my teacher, when she graded it's just for participation, but she would grade the journal entry, and she wrote in the margin, would you like me to talk to him about this? And then also, I will definitely talk to him about this, when I wrote about him pushing me down. And I was kind of shocked and very grateful to see that message from my teacher, because in my experience, not all usually trustworthy authority figures were willing to say that I shouldn't be receiving this treatment, and that it didn't have anything to do with whether he liked me. And it wasn't my responsibility to handle abuse appropriately, so to speak. So moving on from that, I was thinking about adult relationships, and when I was at the last place that I worked before where I work at my current firm, I worked at a similar firm, and there was a man who worked with me he was really disrespectful to me. He was condescending. He would try to joke around with me in sort of mean ways. It's hard to describe, and I don't really want to go into a lot of detail, but he would never listen to me. He would intentionally procrastinate on things so that I would end up having to stay late to help him. He would demand that I do ridiculous things, like trying to make the color blue in a graphic we were working on match the same color as a piece of cardstock that we were trying to print on, and it didn't matter because the art was not important at all, but we would have these just ongoing feuds where I was not having fun, I was not enjoying any of it, and he was just a dick. And when I talked about this with one of my friends, that friend said, "Oh, you guys are having an office romance." And I was like, "Excuse me?" And he said, "Yeah, you're obviously having an office romance. At least he sure thinks so." And I was like, "No, that is not the vibe. That is not the vibe. I've certainly been on the receiving end of unwanted romantic attention, and that is not it." And my friend was very dismissive about it, continuously telling me that that my coworker was creating these situations so we could spend more time together, that he liked me, that he probably thinks I have a crush back on him. And I was younger and the guy was older, and so he was like, "Oh, he's probably trying to shape you into his protege," and blah blah blah. It was just intolerable stuff. I mean, if I were to list all of the most horrible people that I've worked with, this guy would be number one. It was absolutely just batshit stuff. And I have stories, but definitely never felt like he was trying to be even friendly, but definitely not a romantic situation whatsoever. It was just also, having never really been one of those girls that was into the same things as the so-called popular people, usually being kind of on the nerd outskirts. I had plenty of friends, but we were kind of all geeks, and that was fine. And I felt like there was this sort of I'm a geek and he's a popular guy kind of vibe between us at work, because this guy was a frat guy, and he was always talking about stuff that he thought made him have higher status and things like that, just values that completely did not work with mine. And I never felt like the sort of bullying and disrespect that I put up with from this man at work were in any way acts of a person who wanted my company. But this friend of mine very adamantly told me that it was, and that everybody would agree including the people involved except for me, and that I'm the clueless one here. I'm the one who doesn't understand adult relationships because I don't understand that I'm in an office romance without knowing. And, every time I would try to talk about this, maybe I'd be making a Facebook post that's only visible to my friends. This same friend would talk about how cute it was, or suggest to me during a phone call or during a time we were hanging out that we were going to get married. Just, I don't know. It was pretty awful, and I did not like it, and I told him several times, like, I'm not joking, I don't like when you make fun of this, when I'm trying to talk about something unpleasant that's happening in my life, and you're like, that's so cute, you guys are definitely dating, and I'm like, on top of the fact that I don't feel heard by my friend, and that I don't feel like I'm being taken seriously, I also just overall really don't appreciate the idea that because this guy abuses me, it means he likes me. And this is adult stuff now. This is not 4th grade with Daryl pushing me down on the playground. So, yeah. One of the things that I think pertains to asexuality and aromanticism specifically is that we are often thought to be clueless about romantic relationships and how they actually work. And it's a very small step from there to infantilize us and suggest we are immature or oblivious because we don't accept that we're receiving romantic interest or that we are participating in flirting or receiving flirting, that somehow because we're asexual or we're aromantic or both, as in my case, we're just not seeing something that everyone else is seeing and that we don't even know that we're participating in it. And that's dangerous, actually, on top of the fact that this is often said to women, that, like, you were definitely flirting with that man, and I'm like, no, I definitely wasn't. And they're like, no, you were. If you do this, if you treat a man like he's a human being, if you treat him kindly, that means that you're giving him romantic interest. You're teasing him. And that's one of the things I hate most in discussions about adult relationships, is that there's always this game playing going on and that I'm not able to see it because I'm asexual. And, there is a lot of misogyny in this because it is usually directed toward women, that we could say no but really mean yes, because men are making up these rules about, well, you may have said no, and you may have said you aren't interested in that man, and you may even be totally shocked at the idea that anyone thinks that you're involved with this man, but everyone else knows that these are the rules, and that with your actions and with how you're standing or how you spoke to him, that means you are saying yes. And that obviously can be really dangerous in our society because, if right from the beginning somebody is telling me, I don't believe what you say, I believe my interpretation of your actions, so I can treat you as if you did say yes to me. And that goes right from just a normal kind of person-to-person interaction all the way up to possible intimate situations where they'll insist that it was some kind of miscommunication, even if you were very, very clearly saying, I don't want this, I'm not interested in this. They'll make up their own rules. And they'll try to say, especially for people who are not attracted to men, as in my case, that I just didn't understand that I am in fact playing this game. So, it can be kind of a minefield, because I've definitely read in some threads about, feminist dialogues and discussion of misogyny, that especially when it comes to male-female interactions, there's the observation that men will interpret just normal human interaction as if it is flirting, and that it is largely because that's how they would mean that they wouldn't treat you kindly or be friendly to you or express kind of normal human interaction with small talk in an elevator or general pleasantries at the cash register, that they wouldn't do that unless they were sexually attracted to you. And it is very true with those kinds of people. You know, before anybody gets into my comments and tries to not all men me, there's a certain type of person, often these types of men, who will say, yeah, no, you are communicating these things to me. And I know this because I don't treat women in my life that I'm not sexually attracted to with any kind of respect or pleasantness. So they will add to this issue by suggesting that the flavor of an interaction that I'm having is romantic even if I say it isn't. And they will ascribe to me feelings and desires that I do not have. And if they're more than willing to just ignore the things that I say about, no, I'm not attracted to that person, no, I'm not flirting with that person, no, I'm not in an office romance with this person, then it's a very small step from there to just reinterpret absolutely everything I say about my own sexuality. We are sometimes reduced to being considered embryonic sexually, and that we need help, we need guidance, we need someone else to overwrite what we're saying with their own words in order to be happy, because we can't be expected to actually know what we want. And if people who think like this are always overwriting everything that we say about how we feel about these interactions, it's not a surprise at all that there are so many situations with, especially people like us, where we receive unwanted attention and we're told, because of all of these forces in our society, that we did in fact communicate sexual or romantic interest to someone. And yeah, that can be one of the stumbling blocks of existing as an asexual person in the world. And I definitely have also heard from men, asexual men in particular, about unwanted interaction. It's not as common, and I mean, obviously that's for a lot of reasons. One of the major ones being that men are very socialized to be the pursuer and to hold a lot of their worth as a person into whether they're sexually successful. So you may see a lot more emphasis on them being told that they need to prove that they're strong or prove that they're really men by pursuing their desired partners. But it's not uncommon in the ace community to hear men talk about having women believe that their interactions were romantic or sexual, and suggesting to them that they were very disappointed that the man did not pick up on something that they were laying down, or that these women felt rejected if the man just wasn't interested in them sexually. And they may suggest that the person is gay, or they may suggest that the person is rejecting them as a person because they're not interested in sex with them. These are stories that I've definitely heard from ace men. So I don't want to imply that this is something that only happens to women, and in particular ace women in this context, but definitely the expectation that if you're close with a man, he will respond with romantic and sexual attention. That's not something that just happened in isolation either. That's also part of the whole thing. So I have trouble talking about how non-binary people fit into this, because I think so much of their experience is tied to either whatever other people tend to gender them as inappropriately, or being left out. much like a lot of ace people are. So I think that with non-binary people, especially people in the ace community, a lot of them can relate to all of these perspectives as well, and may even do so on another level, because there is this additional expectation that their gender needs to be solved or changed or something, like it's some kind of unresolved puzzle rather than just not being either female or male. So yeah, a lot of the unwanted treatment that they get in society is very much tied up in what society expects them to be or thinks that they are. So I'd be interested in hearing particularly from people who have had experiences in that, like as to how that's different from different from cis people, or different from the experience of being one of the binary genders. I'd also like to say that I'd be interested in hearing from ace men who have been through stuff like this, but the truth is I'd also want to hear from ace women who, like me, have had this kind of stuff happen. And I definitely would be happy to listen to some of your stories in the comments about, times that your negative attention was misinterpreted by someone else as sexual interest or romantic interest when really it was bullying. So with that, I am going to wrap this one up, and I'll see y'all again next time. Bye!